LEGO's main priority since their founding has always been being a family-friendly company and producing child-friendly toys. Lately, they've been starting to get into the adult market as well, releasing more and more sets directed at adults like the DeLorean or The Office. But even with the adult line, they've been trying to stay out of controversies, carefully choosing which sets can and can't be made. Many watching might remember the controversy surrounding the 2020 LEGO Technic Osprey, a set that came under fire after people pointed out that the Osprey was a commonly used military vehicle. Even though LEGO's version was a rescue plane, they decided against releasing the set, upsetting many fans that were looking forward to getting it and driving up the prices of the few released ones. But the biggest controversy LEGO's ever had to face came in 1996 when they unknowingly released a LEGO concentration camp. Before we start, please remember to like and subscribe, but let's jump right into it now. This crazy story begins with the birth of Zbigniew Libera on July 7, 1959. He was born in the relatively small town of Pabianice, a city in the heart of Poland. Since Poland fell into the hands of the Soviet Union following the Second World War and only became its own independent state around 1990, Zbigniew grew up under a communist regime. Combining this with him being raised only by his mom and basically living in poverty, it is clear to say that he didn't have the greatest chances going forward in life. Against all odds though, Zbigniew worked hard, got into Nicolaus Copernicus University and started his career as an artist in the mid-80s, still living in Poland. In 1982, he was arrested for putting up flyers, posters and caricatures of government officials a few months earlier, trying to fight laws meant to suppress workers' protests. After spending 1.5 years in jail, Zbigniew returned to his life as an artist, with many sources mentioning that those 18 months in prison greatly contributed to his development as an artist. Over the coming years, he created multiple artistic projects, mainly consisting of videos, which gained popularity in Europe due to their themes of death, aging and sexuality. In the mid-90s, Zbigniew would reach out to LEGO through the community outreach program, requesting a donation consisting of bricks and minifigures. LEGO provided him with a large number of bricks and a variation of minifigs, which he told them he would use to build a house or a hospital of sorts. Except for that, LEGO knew of nothing he was creating, but since they did provide him with the pieces for his next work, Zbigniew thought it was only right to credit LEGO in it. In 1996, he finally released his next world called Corrective Appliances, consisting of 7 self-made LEGO sets. In a way, you could consider these the first custom sets. These sets didn't just feature his own builds, but also self-made boxes in the style of mid-90s LEGO sets, of course with the LEGO logo heavily featured on each one. The only thing differentiating these sets from normal LEGO ones was that they didn't consist of normal, child and family-friendly settings, but rather depicted multiple scenes during the Holocaust. In total, he designed 7 sets based on scenes depicting concentration camps, crematoriums and Nazi patrols. It is kinda hard finding good images of all of these, and sadly there are very few of them, and I also don't know where most of them are kept nowadays. I still want to give you a more detailed idea though of what these sets feature, so I'll be doing that of the few images we have here. Starting with one of the 4 smallest sets depicting an ongoing electrotherapy carried out by a Nazi doctor. As you can see, Zbigniew used a skull on a white figure to build the doctor. Most NS figures you'll see in these sets are built differently, but the use of skeletons to depict the Jewish prisoners is something that'll carry throughout all of these. The build here is strictly limited to grey and black, and the pictures on the box all have the static grey backdrop. The second set only consists of 3 minifigures, those being 2 Nazi guards and a general or officer. As I mentioned, most of these figures don't look like the doctor from the last set, but more like the guards in this one. The guards are created by taking common yellow hats with helmets and putting them on police torsos on top of plain black legs. The general isn't the purest figure as you would say in today's LEGO world, since it doesn't purely consist of official, untampered with LEGO parts. That's because Zbigniew painted all the torsos to give it a military-like feel, created by the many medals and just his general attire. This look is further complemented by his shoulder pads, which are just sawn off LEGO plates glued to the torso. The grey background on these boxes continues, in addition to the little ages 5 to 10 panel along with the LEGO logo in the corner. Set number 3 shows a bunch of skeletons, or in our case here Jewish prisoners, behind a fence inside of a concentration camp. Again, Zbigniew modified and brought in a few pieces here, like the wire for example, which wasn't a piece that existed back in 1996. We have the typical previously mentioned details on the box, as well as a simple picture of a pile of LEGO skeletons lying on what seems to be a base plate. The last small set is based around a Nazi guard beating down one of the prisoners, again depicted by a skeleton and without any additional builds. Then moving up in scale, we have a storehouse for body parts. Here, I personally don't know what the reference is, but I'm sure there will be people more educated in that part of history who could explain, but I'm just not one of them. It's encircled by a fence similar to the one we saw in the smaller sets, and even though there are a lot of body parts, there are actually no real minifigures in this set. The second biggest set is a crematorium, which can be combined with the biggest set out of these. It features a number of skeleton figures as well as one NS guard. The build itself consists of a long house with 3 big chimneys and a cutter base plate for or the roof. Looking at the box, we get a first glance at the biggest set, as well as a few different scenes like two prisoners carrying another one out of the crematorium or a picture of a mass grave. The last and biggest set Zbigniew designed was the concentration camp itself. Built on two base plates and featuring by far the most minifigures, this is the most famous out of all of these and actually also the one that inspired me to make this video. The build consists of two rows of the previously mentioned fences accompanied by two watchtowers. In the middle of the camp we can spot gallows surrounded by two long barrack buildings to put the prisoners into. When looking at the box we get a view inside of the barracks as well as a better view of the gallows with one of the skeletons actually attached to it. Now that we covered the sets themselves, we can move on to the outrage that followed the release of corrective appliances. As you may have expected, the general consensus was rather opposing of the collection. The two most common points of criticism were the use of child-friendly toys and that it was effectively downplaying the events and suffering Jewish people had to endure during the Holocaust. Zbigniew defended himself, saying that he never intended to distribute the sets to children and that these artworks were only made to show the contrast between the cruelty of the Holocaust and this idealistic world depicted by LEGO. Of course, LEGO themselves caught some flack for this as well, since, as you saw, their logo is on each and every set of the collection. LEGO came out very quickly, stating that they weren't aware of Zbigniew's work as they wouldn't have provided the pieces otherwise, and distanced themselves. They even went as far as critiquing him themselves, calling his work an attempt to get himself into the center of debate and attention. The one institution he garnered heavy support from though was the Jewish Museum in New York, who had actually inspired their exhibit Mirroring Evil, Nazi Imagery and Recent Art in 2002. Zbigniew would go on to create a few more works of photography, with this last exhibit being held in Vienna in 2007. LEGO has pretty much swept all of this under the rug. These days you'll occasionally come across a meme featuring the concentration camp, but it's really more of an urban myth these days. Where all of these sets currently reside is rather unknown. The biggest one somehow ended up in the hands of a Norwegian collector who sold it to the Warsaw Museum of Modern Art in 2012 for a staggering $55,000. There it was part of an exhibit in the latter half of 2012, and where it is now is unknown. Due to all of this happening before the internet, there are very few recordings and documentations, but I tried to make the best of what I could find to present you the story of how LEGO released the concentration camp without knowing. That's it, my dudes. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more of me, check out my socials, the link in the description, as well as my shorts channel, and until next week, goodbye.